What's going on, everyone? So we're inching closer and closer to training camp, and one guy I'd like to see the Lakers maybe take a flyer on. Obviously, Lakers would have to make any trades or anything like that in order to bring players onto the main roster, but wouldn't hurt to bring somebody on for training camp, just to kind of get a feel, kind of get a see, maybe bring them to the G League team and see if maybe, there's something there, is KJ Martin. So KJ Martin, son of Keon Martin, he was recently waived by the Utah Jazz, 6'6". Wingspan, though, is 6'7", so he's not like one of those guys that have a 7-foot wingspan or anything like that. But you look at guys like, Dylan Brooks, great example. Guys 6'6" with 6'7" and some change wingspan. Same thing with KJ Martin. He doesn't have like the insane wingspan, but he does have just under a 39-inch vertical. So high flyer, athletic, versatile, right? Can slot in basically 2-3 range. If you're going like small ball, maybe the 4, but really I want to keep him in kind of that 2-3 range. 3-point shooting, he's not great. He's had some good earlier seasons. He was actually better. Like when he first came in the league, he actually had his best 3-point season, which was just under 37% on 2.1 attempts. And basically all the seasons in which he got at least 2 or more attempts, he was in the 30s. And then you saw his production drop as well as his kind of attempts drop, and thus his percentages drop, right? So but first 2 years, he averaged 2.1 3-point attempts, and he shot just under 37% his rookie season, and then the following year, just under 36%. So again, if he can kind of be in that range, would give you a versatile 2-way, 3-and-D style kind of wing that doesn't solve like our starting needs or anything like that, but gives you another young, athletic, versatile player that you can slot in, plug in, and play in the rotation, and gives you just another young development guy that the Lakers need. He's 24, so he is a little older, right? But he has NBA experience, and on top of that, you can maybe spend a year or so, bring him into the main roster next season, unless somebody obviously picks him up. You wouldn't be able to bring him in on a 2-way because he has more than 4 years of playing experience, so you wouldn't be able, like if he does do well in training camp, you wouldn't be able to then sign him on like a 2-way or anything like that. But maybe you can keep him under the umbrella, keep him under the banner for the Lakers, to where, next season you're going to need cheap kind of athleticism, cheap wing depth and whatnot. If you can solve some of your kind of big needs this season, then you could look to bring in some of these kind of, an Arthur Kaluma or a KJ Martin or guys like that to see if maybe they can kind of play a role for you, if they can kind of plug in and fill some of those gaps on just cheap deals, right? Like, you need to find those cheap kind of upside, low risk, high reward type of players. Those guys that can maybe be a gem for you. Some of them you're going to miss on, some of them you're going to hit, but you only need to hit on 1 or 2 of them. And if they're like a key piece in your rotation, it's a huge success. If you can bring in a guy like a KJ Martin who has the athleticism, who has the capability of slotting into that 2-way role for you off the bench in a rotation with some upside, with some potential that just really needs an opportunity, in my opinion, I do think he's a guy that can, fill in that role. You look at his career, he's a career 9.4 rebound and 1.5 assist guy. Hey, again, if he's your 7th, 8th, 9th guy off the bench, and he's giving you 8 points, knocking down 2 threes or, a 1.5 threes a game, getting a lob dunk from Luka, playing within the role in the system and actually giving you some athleticism and defense out on the perimeter. Like, what more could you ask for, especially on what would probably be a vet minimum contract, especially if you can get him long term? And look, Lakers have talked about how they want to be kind of that young development team, that team that, hey, if you want to be the best version of yourself, come to Lakers. Right. And, obviously the Luka trade kind of, sent us in a different direction, right? Lakers were trying to find, young pieces that they could bring in, had a couple, project guys, stuff like that. And then, trying to find centers that can be long-term answers, things like that. And then all of a sudden we got Luka. So it was like, okay, priority shifts. We got Luka, we got LeBron. Let's go try to win an NBA championship. But like I've talked about in previous videos, I don't want to see them lose the goal of really trying to carve out this culture of development. right? It's not something the Lakers have done. I mean, Lakers have developed guys over the years, but it's not something that the Lakers are really known for, right? Like they kind of, they'll kind of build up guys to the point where they can trade them for the proven superstars, or they'll kind of just go get those guys in free agency, or trust the brand that is the Lakers, which I'm all for, and it's a proven model, right? Don't fix what ain't broke. But with the new CBA, you are going to have to get a little adaptive here, right? I do fully believe in the Lakers brand. I mean, I've talked about it even last season, right? Before the Luka trade, I even talked about trust the process, trust that you're the Lakers, trust that you're going to be able to land that next guy, trust that, once you have that next guy, another guy will come, right? If you build it, they will come type thing. And guess what? Lo and behold, fast forward, Luka, and I've reiterated the same thing. Again, stay patient, let things kind of play themselves out, trust that you're the Lakers, and players want to play for you, or things are going to break your way. But you also, in the same breath, if you can, find those gems, find those guys here and there. A guy like a Jake LaRavia, I think, has the potential to be a great example of that. A guy that is, has shown some real promise as a guy that could be a legit two-way guy in this league for you. Bring him in, still young enough to kind of be a long-term piece, a long-term answer. And if it works out, beautiful, right? If it doesn't work out, you find the next guy, right? You got to be able to move, and you got to be able to kind of jump into the next thing. Dude Thero, all these guys. Bring in these young guys, Arthur Kaluma. I love guys like that. Athletic, versatile, long, can defend multiple positions, can play multiple positions. KJ Martin kind of fits that mold of just an athletic, versatile, can defend 1 through 3 for you, on some occasions, some 4s. Just give you what this team really needs. That youthfulness, that athleticism, the foot speed, especially if you're going to have, Luka Doncic and an Austin Reeves long term. I mean, we'll see what actually happens with Austin Reeves this year, and then obviously going into next offseason. But assuming the Lakers don't look to get off of him anytime soon, you need to kind of have the pieces to complement those two in your backcourt. So you need to have guys like a KJ Martin and a Du Thero, guys like Bronny James, guys that have this athleticism to them and their defensive versatility that can kind of play that role, continue to be lob threats that Luka can kind of, utilize in other ways other than just, a catch and shoot guy. KJ Martin can be that catch and shoot guy, but he can also be that slasher cutter. He can crash off the wings for rebounds, things like that. Because like I said, he's been a solid rebounder. 9 points, 4 rebounds as basically guard forward, right? Like that'd be great if you can have that and him kind of play a role off the bench in a rotation. Not so much this year. I've had a lot of people. When this happened, obviously, because I usually talk about these guys when they get bought out or waived or whatever, right? I usually get people that are like, oh, what about this guy? I'd love it if the Lakers end up pulling off a trade and they need to bring somebody in. I have no problems bringing in KJ Martin and kind of giving him an opportunity and giving him a role, right? Like, Jordan Goodwin is a great example. That guy that kind of was that kind of cast off, kind of, trying to find his way, find his mold. Lakers were able to bring him in. And he was a huge piece for us. I mean, I still wish we kept him, right? He's exactly the kind of guy that we need. Obviously, we had to go get, Marcus Smart and then DeAndre Ayton and things like that. So, it was justified to let him go. But he was the kind of guy that you want, slotted in, being able to defend and do all those things. Well, again, you got a KJ Martin who's available on the market that may be able to kind of, again, fill in and play that role for you as that two-way, capable, athletic, versatile player. I mean, Lakers just need athleticism, period, right? They just need guys that can go out there and chase down loose balls and defend multiple positions and do the hustle plays, do the dirty work, right? Make the impacts, do the things that don't necessarily show up in the box score, right? Bronny James even talked about that. Like, hey, I know what my role is here. And it's not to score the basketball. It's not to go drop 20, whatever. My role is to play defense, do the dirty work, make the hustle plays, diving for loose balls, sacrificing to make those winning plays to potentially put us over the top, to potentially be the difference in a game or series or things like that. Because, all those little things add up, especially a lot of these games, like some of those Minnesota games, some of those Denver games. Yes, we lost, in just terrible fashion, but a lot of those games were close enough that, a key turnover or, a key rebound or something, right? A great example is that Denver series early on. I think it was game 1. Was it game 1? Game 1 or 2. But Anyway, it's the play where they get down the court. Michael Porter Jr. shoots the three. He misses it, and they're like in transition. And Aaron Gordon ends up grabbing the rebound. He's like falling out of bounds, kicks it back out to Michael Porter Jr. He takes another one and he hits it. Right? If we get that rebound, we have the lead late in the game. We're going back the other direction, probably win that game, and now it's a different series. Right? Now you got momentum, now you got confidence. Right? So, it's those little winning plays can be the difference between you winning or losing a game. Right? Aaron Gordon grabs that rebound, kicks it out, Michael Porter Jr., boom. They tied it or took the lead, and then were able to snatch that game from us. Right? It's things like that. If you can find those kind of guys that can come in, be a guy that go get that rebound or dive for loose ball, even if it's not late in games, but even second quarter. It's like, there's a big difference between being up 5 or being up 7, going into the half. Like, so you can find those guys like a KJ Martin. I think he's a guy that could really make an impact for this Lakers team in the long run, right? Like I said, not a guy that I necessarily look at as, being a key piece this season, but bring him under the Lakers umbrella, develop him for this season, and then hopefully he can be a piece next season. Or, like I said, if the Lakers end up pulling off a trade at some point, say an Andrew Wiggins trade or something, it's like a 2-for-1 swap, and you need a fellow Ross spot, maybe KJ Martin, if he's showing that promise and showing, and staying with the team and stuff, maybe you can move him into a role, kind of just, even into the bench kind of guy. But I want to go over his stats real quick. So between Utah and Philadelphia, because he went from Philadelphia to Utah last season, 43 games played, 16 games started, 21 minutes per game, shot 55.2% from the floor. 3-point range, however, he shot 25.9%. However, he did shoot 38% with Philadelphia. The problem is, and the reason it dropped so drastically, is because with Utah, he went from 1 attempt with Philadelphia to 2 attempts in Utah and only shot 19% with the Utah Jazz, right? Got to think, playing alongside Luka, LeBron, and Austin Reeves, not necessarily saying that he has to be 38%, but can he be, what he was earlier in his career where he's around 36, 37%? If he can kind of get back to that, that could be a huge thing, where if he's giving you 1.5 threes a game, somewhere in that range, that could be massive. But 2-point range, on the season, 3.3 attempts, 67.1% from the field. So excellent in that regard. It was also his career best. With Philadelphia, he was actually 67.9%, so almost 68%. He had an EFG on the season of 59%, which is, again, really good. And that's counting his poor 3-point shooting with Utah. Free throw shooting, he was 78.7% between both places. He was actually 82, almost 83% with Philadelphia on 1.2 attempts. He grabbed 3 rebounds, 1.5 assists, half a steal, half a block, and 6.4 points per game. His per 36 doesn't tell you everything, kind of gives you an idea of like what he could have maybe done. As a full-time starter, he would have been 11 points, 5 rebounds, 2 assists, a steal, and a block per game. Again, athletic, versatile, gives you a little bit of everything. If you can land him, I think you should. But anyway, as always, this is a discussion. Pass a question on you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments. That being said, if you haven't liked this video, hit that like button. Helps me a lot. So we enjoy these types of videos, and I truly appreciate it. Not subscribe channel, hit that subscribe button. Turn on the bell notifications. Appreciate y'all. See you in the next one.